hablaron. Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades y epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hasta dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
Peace, peace.
Hello, hello, peace and rise up. You are tuned in to the Rise Up International Morning Show. My name is Reverend Kiana Jones Moore. I go by KJ, and I'm here today with my co-host Rakeem Shabazz, who is the host of Wise the Dome TV here on Black Power Media. Rakeem, what's up?
Nah, man, I'm doing good. What about yourself, Kiana?
I am doing well. I have all this type of energy that's moving through me. It's been good, these past few days. There's a lot moving and shaking, and I feel that same moving and shaking in my spirit. Today is a very special day, whether people know it or not. Today is the 4th anniversary of Black Power Media. So happy birthday to
Happy birthday, Black Power Media, man. Thank you guys for rocking with us and continuing to show your support for people that may not know about what we're doing over here, Black Power Media. Make sure you have them subscribe to Black Power Media. Check us out on blackpowermedia.org as well. You know what I'm saying? We're doing big things, got a lot of things planned for the future. Again, happy 4th birthday to Black Power Media.
Absolutely. And we realize that today is Tuesday, February 18th, but the anniversary of Black Power Media is actually February 17th. Because we do not air on Mondays, we are celebrating today and all year long. Honestly, we're celebrating the inception of Black Power Media the same way I celebrate my birthday. It could be August 25th, and I'll be out here like, it's my birthday.
That's what I was going to say. Black folks, we celebrate our birthday for about a month anyway. You know what I'm saying?
For me, literally, it is 364 days. I celebrate until the next birthday comes around because it's always appropriate, right?
Absolutely.
There's no time like the present.
No time like the present.
So on February 17th, 2021, Black Power Media was founded. And I think it's extremely apropos because February 17th is also the birthday of one Huey P. Newton, founder of the Black Panther Party. So when we think about all the things that Black Power Media is, what we mean to the people, what we endeavor to bring to the people, and the consciousness that we seek to ignite, which would lead to action, how appropriate that Black Power Media was founded on the same day that Huey P. Newton was born.
Absolutely. Happy born day to the legend Huey P. Newton. We are forever indebted to your works, remembered imperfection. Everybody go put a revolutionary suicide on your reading list for 2025.
Absolutely. You know, Huey P. Newton also famously said, I do not think life will change for the better without an assault on the establishment which goes on exploiting the wretched of the earth.
Mm, mm.
When we think about that quote in these times, life is not going to change for the better.
No, and
Still,
it's one thing about Huey that I admire is he was so ahead of his time. Some of the things that he were talking about then, most of those things we see in play to this day. You know what I mean? A lot of times people ask, what are the solutions to our plight? And I always respond, hey, this is why study is important because we have been given a lot of these solutions by those that came before us, and it's just our time to actually implement those. So, absolutely, happy born day to Dr. Huey P. Newton. And I gotta say this too, man. Like whenever we're talking about the Black Panther Party, I hate the idea that they have been relegated to just these black folks with guns. These were people that were feeding the community. These were people that were concerned with the health, the physical health of the community. These were people that were dealing also with revolutionary ideologies and frameworks. And they were intellectuals, and they not only uh, mapped out our issues that we were having then and in the present. They offered solutions in these ideological frameworks. And that's why it's important for us to always study those that came before us.
absolutely. I think one of the things that is extremely important to highlight about the Black Panther Party is that they were not just about, oh, let's study this and let's look at movements of the past,
Mm-hmm.
implement some of these things. So when it came down to the free breakfast program that would
Mm-hmm.
eventually become what the government took up as free breakfast and lunch for public school students,
Right.
the Black Panther Party saw that there was not an apparatus that was going to make sure that Black children going to public schools were properly nourished so that they could put in the energy to studying that was needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, the Black Panther Party said, we are not waiting on the government. We are not waiting on a 501c3. We are going to feed our people. And that's one of the reasons why FTP
Mm-hmm.
is named as such, because the free breakfast program is one of those hallmark programs of the Black Panther Party. Also, the Black Panther Party set up free clinics. Like you said, they were concerned with the physical health. They were concerned with physical health of the community, also the financial health of the community, and making sure that people understood what it meant to be in community, to work together toward common goals without having to bring in anyone from the United States government, anyone from the city government, anyone from the county government. The Black Panther Party impressed upon us that we keep us safe, that we are the answers that we've been waiting for, that we have to be the change that we want to see. And I think it's so important that we continue to move in that tradition. Once the Black Panther Party set up the free breakfast program, it became incumbent upon the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI at the time, hated the Black Panther Party and had such a hard on
Absolutely.
for them, and literally wrote that it was important to make sure that they could abolish the free breakfast program so that people would not become endeared to the
Yep.
Black Panther Party. It was always the goal of J. Edgar Hoover, the government, and the FBI to paint the Black Panther Party as simply Black militants with weapons. Because again, here we go, Black fear. And
Yes.
you think about Birth of a Nation, right? Some of those scenes that you see in that movie, little white lady need to be afraid of big fat Mandingo gonna come
Yeah.
as if you have anything to,
Right.
but it was the goal of the government to make people not like the Black Panther Party. And because they knew that once you begin to provide resources, now there is no excuse for the government. Because if we can do it as a Black Panther Party, as a community organization that is simply here to make things move in the favor of our people, if we can do it without the funding that the government has, what is the government's excuse?
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned one thing about putting things into practice, and that's exactly what Fred Hampton said: "Theory with no practice ain't shit." Right. And if you can you just build on a little bit on why, whenever we talk about community organizing and community organizations, you mentioned the fact that they didn't take government funding. Why is that an important point? Let's
It's extremely important that we don't get trapped in the 501c3 industrial complex, right? The status of 501c3 as a charitable organization under the IRS binds you to certain tenets, and it tells you what you can and what you cannot do. I find it so interesting because this designation of a 501c3 has been used to really kneecap the church.
Right.
So many churches are now 501c3 charitable organizations under the IRS code, but that means that the tradition of the Black church in particular cannot be upheld. Where in the church is the place where we organize, where the church is the place where we do political education, because 501c3 guidelines deter you from many of those activities. So when we think about community organizations that are truly here to uplift people, to build power in community, if you're really looking to build power in community, you're not trying to be a 501c3.
Right.
And it's not to say that the 501c3 status does not have its utility, because it does. We should absolutely go ahead and get some of that government money that people continue to take right from up under us for things that don't benefit our communities. However, when we talk about community organizing, when you remain at a very grassroots level, it allows you to be the most authentic to the people with whom you organize, those people with whom you seek to build power. The structure of a 501c3 is inherently antithetical to what it means to build power in community, because now you have another hierarchical structure that would and could oppress the very people who you want to build power with. So it's important when we think about community organizing for us to think about what it means to organize on a very basic level with people, to show them what power is, how power is gained, and how power needs to be exercised for our benefit. And then it's another thing for us to have a different apparatus that would be able to receive government funding for certain programs, but we need to make sure that we always have the latitude to organize in the most authentic way. And that is the danger of a 501c3, but also the utility of a 501c3 organization when we talk about organizing and building power in community.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%. Whenever you are not solely dependent on government funding, you have the agency to move in the manner in which you choose and not have to worry about the guidelines set in place by the government or an outside entity.
Correct. It's our own self-determination that we get to decide how it is that we want to move, what we think is most effective for building power. For example, if we were a 501c3 organization and we decided that we wanted to bring people together to organize around, I don't know, utility burden, energy burden,
Right.
as a 501c3 organization, the only thing that we could do would be give general information to people. If we decided that we wanted to delve into a governing body, perhaps, that has regulatory agency over utility companies, then we're moving into the realm of another type of nonprofit organization, a 501c4. It could go all the way up to a C7, depending on what type of organization that you have, whether it is for political education, if it is to influence legislation on some level. All of those things kind of fall under the C4 umbrella. But then when you have organizations like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, or a community softball team, that would be closer to a C6, a C7 type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that with each iteration of the 501c whatever, there are stipulations as to how you have to operate within community. So on the level of a 501c3, I could not tell a person within the guidelines of that IRS tax code, hey, go to your local, I don't know, Board of Public Utilities or Public Service Commission and say X, Y, Z, and A because your utility bill is too high.
Mm-hmm.
I would be in violation of a 501c3 code.
Wow.
This is why, as churches and religious organizations, whether that's a church, a mosque, a temple, whatever it is, so many times we have to walk the line of what can we say? In the Black church, we got this whole souls to the polls thing.
Yeah.
In the Black church, we lean heavily Democratic, vote often and vote Democrat. You're not going to be able to say in this Black church, oh, we want you to vote for this Democrat candidate. Because if you do, and someone should record that and send it to the IRS, now you're in violation of the 501c3 tax code, and perhaps you can have your designation stripped away.
Right.
Even though we might know that as we do power mapping and we think about what it is that we want for our communities, who can influence certain things that affect us, and how it is that we might want to vote for those of us who believe in the power of electoral politics, there are necessary conversations that have to be had about the utility of voting for one candidate versus another. Those conversations, when we talk about legislation and we begin to do a contrast of candidates, if we're doing anything more than printing out a scorecard of where they stand on certain issues, then we are outside of the realm of a 501c3. We've now crossed over into C4 territory, and that carries certain violations that many people are extremely afraid of because they don't want to have their 501c3 status stripped away. And then some people are just not knowledgeable about it. So when it comes down to it, they would err on the side of caution and just not talk about anything politically. But what we have seen in time immemorial when it comes to the Black radical tradition of organizing, even before we got to be super radical, but when organizing itself was simply radical, all of this was done in the church. So churches walk a very fine line when it comes to the 501c3 status. And for that reason, many churches are not as involved in the political arena as they used to be. And also for that reason, many churches these days have decided not to become 501c3 organizations as designated by the IRS tax code, so as not to endanger anything, but because they want to authentically help the people whom they shepherd to determine certain things when it comes to politics.
Indeed. Yeah, that's a very powerful point that you made. Again, it's about us having agency over ourselves and our organizations and the ability to guide, the ability to move in the direction that's most beneficial for our communities. And whenever you're dealing again with outside entities, that's not always their goal, right? A lot of times people may get funding just so they won't be radical, right?
Absolutely.
Used as a tool to kind of water down something that had the potential to be radical, right? And so this is something that we've seen for a while, and I definitely appreciate you explaining that to the people and to myself, because that's a very important point.
Definitely. There are some people who do want to be hamstringed. There are some people who want to be able to say,
the bread, right, huh?
Right. Some people want to be able to say, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. This 501c3 designation doesn't allow me to do this. So this is where we move into the co-opting of movement. Because once people begin to designate themselves as 501c3 organizations, they are effectively able to water down their involvement in radical movement. It gives them that out, and you really can't dispute it legally. But when it comes down to it, this is when you know somebody's a sucker because they decided.
Right on. Hiding behind that,
decided,
hiding, using that 501c3 as a shield
yes,
to, all right, I got you.
decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Choices. Everything comes down to a choice, and you have a choice as to what it is that you will do. I know some people who organize in movement spaces who have not only the skill, the knowledge, but the wherewithal to form 501c3 organizations, but they refuse because they will not lend themselves to the malfeasance that is the 501c3 industrial complex at times, because it's BS on a lot of levels. But also they do not want to walk the line of potentially becoming a part of the co-optation of real grassroots movement.
Indeed. Very well put. So yeah, that's one thing that I think we should all take from Brother Huey and the rest of the Panthers is, we look back into the past to see what our people taught us through their ways and actions, not just what they wrote about. And I think that's something that we should all pick up and learn from.
Absolutely. I think that takes us into a Black Power power up. Some people call them a Black Power break. I call them Black Power ups because you know what? It just gives me a little bit more energy, a little bit more to go on. So let's get into a Black Power up.
I want you to know that I want you to say, if you ever think about me, and if you think about me, niggas, and if you ain't gonna do no revolutionary act, forget about me. I don't want myself on your mind if you're not gonna work for the people. Like we always said, if you actually make a commitment at the age of 20, and you say, I don't want to make that commitment because for the simple reason that I'm too young to die, I want to live a little bit longer. What you did, you did already. You have to understand that people have to pay the price for peace. If you dare to struggle, you dare to win. If you dare not to struggle, then goddamn it, you don't deserve to win. Let me say peace to you if you're willing to fight for it. Let me say it in the spirit of liberation. I've been gone for a little while. At least my body's been gone. You ain't got to repeat after me. At least my body's been gone for a little while. But I'm back now, and I believe that I'm back to stay. I believe that I'm going to do my job, and I believe that I was born not to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die from slipping on a piece of ice. I don't believe I'm going to die because I got a bad heart. I don't believe I'm going to die because of lung cancer. I believe that I'm going to be able to die what I was in the things that I was born for. I believe that I'm going to be able to die high off the people. I believe that I will be able to die as a revolutionary in the international revolutionary proletarian struggle. And I hope that each one of you will be able to die in the international proletarian revolutionary struggle, even be able to live in it. And I think that struggle is going to come. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?
Immortal words
Absolutely.
from Chairman Fred Hampton. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people? Now, the chairman was not encouraging anyone to just go out and be reckless and die, because I'll be very clear that movement does not require your life. It is not the forfeiture of your life, but movement requires that you live in a way that fosters the forward advancement of our people. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people? When he says, why don't you die for the people, that simply means that at the point that you come to the end of your life, you have done all that you can. In the church, we always sing a song that says, if I can just help somebody along the way, then my living will not be in vain. Why don't you die for the people? Why don't you make your life about this movement of edifying the people, of fortifying the people, of equipping the people with the knowledge, with the tools and the skills necessary to be self-determined? Why don't you struggle for the people? A lot of people talk about the word struggle. People don't like the word struggle because they equate it with the hardships of being Black in this so-called United States of America, right? They don't like the word struggle because they don't want to be in the struggle always. They don't want to think about struggle. They're tired of it because they've seen their parents struggle. They've seen their older relatives struggle. They've seen their neighbors struggle. They've seen friends struggle. But to struggle simply means to keep moving forward through adversity. And sometimes we have to struggle together.
That's what I was going to say.
There are things that we have to struggle with. We have to struggle with our ideologies, right? Because we don't all come from the same place. We don't all come from the same organizing tradition. So we have to struggle with methodology. We have to struggle with praxis. We have to struggle with pedagogy. But that simply means that we are willing to engage in that back and forth while still moving together.
Absolutely. That's why whenever, like, as you mentioned, struggle, right? And how that word can bring a reaction out of some. I implore people to understand that whenever we mention struggle, we are mentioning our collective struggle. You are not in this by yourself. You have comrades all over the world who are doing this work. Sometimes it can feel lonely. But as Fred Hampton said, when he talked about to live for the people, to struggle for the people, to die for the people, he's defining a purpose. What purpose are you giving your life? All of our purpose should be for the liberation of African people at home and abroad, right?
Yes.
And we all have a role to play. Nobody's asking anyone to lead a movement by themselves. We all think of it as a community. We all have different roles, different skills that we apply to our collective struggle, and we put them all together, and we do what we have to do to reach our desired outcome. And so again, I know that word struggle can bring some negative connotations with it, but as my comrade Kiana stated, this is a collective struggle. We are in this together, and so always keep that in your mind that, hey, this is not a one-man job. We're all in it together. We're all working towards one common goal, which is African liberation.
Absolutely. And when we think about what African liberation means, it's such a poignant thought in these times. Because we have seen decade after decade that Africa is being exploited for its people and for the natural resources there. I was behind a Tesla yesterday, and the longer I sat behind that Tesla, I won't even talk about some of the thoughts that entered in. I think technically I'm labeled a pyromaniac. But one of the things that always comes into my mind when I'm ever behind a Tesla, and honestly some smaller electric vehicles, because I work in my vocation as an environmentalist at an environmental organization, I'm always thinking about if people truly understood what it took to make that Tesla, would they really think they were doing the environment such a favor by driving the Tesla?
Right.
And you get into one of those crazy chicken and egg analogies, what's actually good for the environment? Because when I'm thinking about Tesla, I'm also thinking about old Muskie boy, but also the cronies, asbestos and Zuckerberg, Then I start to think about Google, and I think about Dell, and I think about Microsoft and technology companies.
Apple.
And then I think about these other companies, right? Apple, Samsung, what is it? Neo and Rivian. And I begin to think about the Nvidia. Nvidia is a big one, right? Because I need to think about these companies that make certain batteries also. They are all plundering and destroying parts of Africa.
Yep.
And particularly the bloodshed in Congo as it relates to diamonds, coltan, cobalt, all types of minerals that are used for the types of technology that we use, right? And at this point, I am firmly committed to going back to a flip phone.
Yeah.
Because one, Google sucks. They have decided to actually rename the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mapping.
Right.
Bananas. They have removed the acknowledgments of Black History Month, Women's History Month, Indigenous Peoples Month, Hispanic Heritage Month from their calendars. And also, I can't help but remember that Google was one of the first places back in the day to begin to chip their employees so that as they are within their workplace in Silicon Valley, they would not use any type of physical currency, but everything would be electronic. Because, you know, me and my old Baptist mind,
yeah, right. But it's a way to control, have power over their employees, and have
absolutely
surveillance over their employees. Yeah,
complete surveillance, literal like surveillance, totally. And you know, I don't want these suckers tracking me, watching me.
That's what they're trying to move to be able to watch the American citizens. No matter where they are, workplace, at home, we have, like, you know, we have these devices in our house that
absolutely,
like, yo, this thing is listening to me. You know what I'm saying? This thing is. I've seen.
You know, I got rid of my smartwatch.
Hey, I don't blame you. I saw the other day.
Shit was too smart for me.
Look, I saw the other day. You know, there was. I guess an argument in somebody's home. It wasn't physical violence or anything. It was an argument like sometimes people can have, and it got picked up on the Ring camera, and police came.
Oh no!
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And so this is the level of. This is just the tip of the iceberg, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg. As far as how they plan on you know, just keeping tabs on us. But I don't want to get too far off of, you know, what we're talking about as far as Congo and everything. Do you want to go ahead and get into that story? Because I think that's the perfect segue with what you were saying.
I definitely do, because a lot of times when people think about Canada, they think that Canada has progressed so much farther than the United States when it comes to imperialism.
Right.
And the reality of it is that Canada is the United States light, right? This is not a better place. So many people began to look at Canada as a much better place years ago when the whole conversation around universal healthcare was center stage.
Right.
And people looked to Canada for its model of universal healthcare. And look, I will be the first to tell you that when it comes down to it, I have been to Canada. As a matter of fact, I was in Guelph, Canada, a few months ago. And what I saw was something that I would love to see here in the United States, because I was at the University of Guelph. I was there for a solidarity conference. And inside the university, there is a health clinic. Inside the university, there's an ophthalmologist. Inside the university, there's a dentist. I stayed at a hotel across the street from the campus, and about a block away was a Walmart. Anybody who knows me knows that Walmart is the place that I hate most in all the world, but somehow I just find myself drawn there to see what's there.
Right.
And also, I wanted to see if this Canadian Walmart was going to be much different than my local Walmart here in Decatur, Georgia. I went into their Walmart, and there is a health clinic within the Walmart. So there is something to be said about the model of community health care in Canada, but also what I saw in Canada, plenty of corporations that contribute to genocide in other places, whether we are talking about TD Bank as it relates to the genocide in Palestine. You know, there are other companies like, oh my goodness, I can't think right now of this shipping company, but there is an entire campaign against this shipping company because they are the ones that Maersk is responsible for shipping weapons to Israel for the genocide of Palestinians and Lebanese people and anybody else who would resist their imperial regime. So when we look at Canada, we can certainly admire the lengths to which they have gone to ensure accessible health care for people. But we also have to be honest in that Canada is much like unto the United States in its aiding of genocide and the abetting of those who would commit genocide. So when we look at even the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, these people have been responsible for the destruction of Indigenous lands, for the capturing and torturing and imprisonment of Indigenous peoples, and for the exploitation of Indigenous resources. So here we find Canada again with its hands smack dab in the middle of the conflict in Congo.
Right.
And according to this article, Eastern Congo is facing a devastating foreign invasion, and Canada is once again assisting the imperialist targeting that tortured land. In the latest stage of 3 decades of Rwandan-instigated violence, its proxy M23 rebels recently took the biggest city in Eastern Congo. Paul Kagame's Rwanda has again captured Goma, a city of 2 million on its border. 400,000 people have been displaced in fighting since the start of the year, and over 1 million during the past 3 years of Rwandan-instigated war. The Canadian government has stayed silent on Kigali's aggression while backing the brutal Rwandan dictator. On Sunday, Global Affairs Canada released a statement critical of violence in Congo, which failed to mention the thousands of Rwandan troops in the country. The statement vaguely referred to quote-unquote foreign troops in Eastern Congo while causing mayhem in Congo and solidifying his dictatorship. Kagame continues to receive Canadian support. In August, Canada's High Commissioner in Kigali, Julie Crowley, celebrated his presidential election victory with 99% of the vote, and Justin Trudeau has met Kagame multiple times. 6 months into Rwanda's latest invasion into Congo, Trudeau attended the June 2022 Commonwealth Summit in Kigali. Trudeau focused his discussion with Kagame on opposing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, ignoring Rwanda's aggression against Congo. It was also announced that Canada would open a full diplomatic high commission in the country. So here we see that Canada, Justin Trudeau being the Prime Minister of Canada, and this article was in 2022, talks about events in 2022, but came out in 2023, tells us how Canada has continued to have not only interest, but influence in the conflict within Congo.
Yeah.
When people think about what's happening now, people will say, oh my goodness, Rwanda just decided, that they were going to invade Goma. M23 just decided they want Goma. M23 did not decide. Canada has a vested interest, and Canada continues to supply M23 with munitions in order not only for them to have affected the siege on Goma, but for Rwanda to continue a full-on assault against Congo. And when we look at Rwanda, you and I are old enough to remember that they made a movie in the 90s called Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah.
And it talked about a genocide specifically within Rwanda. I think that people should be interested to know that Paul Kagame was around at that time, that Paul Kagame was an instigator of much that took place there. And if people missed the episode where we talked with our comrades from Friends of the Congo and some Congolese people who are still within the Democratic Republic of Congo, I think people would be interested to know what Paul Kagame's contribution to continuous genocide has been, not only within his own country of Rwanda, but also within Congo, with bringing in Uganda as a proxy to help terrorize Congo. But then also Paul Kagame's connection to Andrew Young, who is a revered civil rights leader in the eyes of many, but as we know, is one such that did not do such a service as we would like to pretend.
Yep.
Andrew Young has a school of public policy named after him at Georgia State University. And it is within that Andrew Young School of Public Policy that the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange is housed. The Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange is a foreign exchange program between local police departments and the Israeli military, wherein local police departments go to Israel to train with the Israeli occupation forces. There is a culture of importing and exporting violence that sees people here in the United States fall victim to the tactics, the inhumane tactics of the Israeli occupation forces. We see even here with our own movement to stop Cop City, but also in the movement for Palestinian liberation, we have seen local police officers use tactics that they learned in Israel against peaceful protesters, right? So when we think about what Paul Kagame means to the instigation of violence in Africa, we have to connect that to Andrew Young, and we have to amplify the Andrew Young School of Public Policy, which houses the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange, which not only are we talking about the Israeli occupation forces, when we talk about something like GILE, the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange, we can't leave AFRICOM out of this conversation, right? And out of this equation, because why did we think as a country that Africa needed the United States to set up a command center there? Africa does not have a command center here. So why is there this U.S. Africa
to spread democracy, as they like, just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, and especially with Canada, we have always identified in the Black radical tradition the United States being a settler colonial project. I don't think we talk about enough that Canada is also a settler colonial
absolutely
project. And it has its own terrible history of how it treats in its indigenous population, its African population. And so a lot of times they seem like whenever we were young, we were fed a narrative in some public school systems that the idea that there were bad slave owners and there were nice slave owners, right? Canada tries to play the quote unquote nice slave owner, but we know that regardless to the public image that it tries to keep, there's a filthy history behind it, and I think, as we've talked about before, whenever we are mentioning the Congo, coltan, cobalt, smartphones, EV batteries, even gold. Like, I don't want to not mention gold, platinum, diamonds, these things that
Yes.
end up in these jewelry stores that, you know, people seem to love. I mean, I know we just had Valentine's Day right the other day, and I wonder how many receive some damn conflict diamonds as appreciation to their significant other for their love and commitment, right? And so we just have to be aware of these things. But as we know, like West and Central Africa and Africa as a whole, it powers the West. And so, regardless to whether they, uh, publicly act as if they are coming as friends and collaborators, they are coming as exploiters, right? There's no, yeah, and with Kagame, it's the age old, it's the age old thing with foreign puppets, African puppets, doing the
Proxy wars.
yeah, and proxy wars, doing the bidding of the West. So we can,
Yes.
they'll be able to sit back and like, look, this is the issue between Rwanda and Uganda and Congo,
It's the
and
conflict.
yeah, it's the conflict, right? But they never, obviously mention how that conflict originated, the roots, and even if there were, conflicts before, the West exacerbates those conflicts in order to destabilize what that nation has going on to make it easier to exploit them. And again, we just continuously see this over and over and over throughout the history of Africa, and not just Africa, but the global South period.
Absolutely.
This is what they do, and so none of this is a surprise. I know I was looking up a few things, um, as some of the companies, some of the Canadian companies that are mining companies that are in Canada, and um, Ivanhoe Mines, a Canadian mining
Mm-hmm.
company that is expanding the copper complex in the DRC. Uh, Alphamine Bissay Mining,
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
Canadian and South African owned mining company that operates in the eastern DRC. Anvil Mining, a Canadian mining company that held a mine in the Katanga province. First Quantum Minerals, a
Mm-hmm.
Canadian mining company that has been active in the DRC since 1997. And so, as we see, they are extremely active in
Mm-hmm.
the Congo, exploiting and extracting all of the resources. No matter what public image they have, again, to me, I mean, they're no different from the United States of America. They may have a few more concessions that they give to their citizens, but as a world power, they are in line with white hegemony and white supremacy and the need to exploit Africa and the rest of the global South for all of its resources to power their own nations and to get their own, it's just neo-colonialism.
Absolutely. Look at the financial companies that have interest here. You
Right.
can't
Who's
let
getting
Deloitte
paid?
off the hook. Deloitte
Yeah,
can't get off the hook.
yeah, I know, and so we see our brothers and sisters, struggling and to survive, and while we see these European corporations uh, just getting paid and living like fat rats off of the labor and the resources of Africa, and
Absolutely.
it's sickening, but I mean, that's where we are, and we have to continue to bring awareness. We have to continue to find, I guess, who out there or who here is, you know, fighting against that, and do everything that we can to support them, whether it's with our time, energy, if we have some money to give, we got to do it, because a free Africa means a free African people, regardless to
Absolutely.
where we are.
Absolutely. I feel you on that 1000.
Yeah, but don't get it twisted. Canada tries to play itself like we are the kind slave owner.
Right.
Like
Right.
don't, yeah. But as we know, there's no such thing as a kind slave owner. Yeah, if you
There is not. There is not. I think that when we continue to interrogate what it means, to have your hand in the African cookie jar,
Right.
we have to consider everyone that is there. And we also have to look to history, and we have to remember that there are very, very few of the so-called Fortune 500 companies that are housed within the United States that also have headquarters and operations in Canada, and many of them also in the UK. We cannot turn a blind eye to where their wealth came from, how they amassed wealth, and how they have continued to exploit, whether it is Africa or whether it is a sweatshop in Taiwan. Because what I notice about the colonizer is that they look to those who they believe will not be considered. Like, oh, who's thinking about a village in Delhi? Well, someone is thinking about a village in Delhi, and we know that you are too.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that you cannot continue to exploit our people. You know, who is thinking about somebody in Bangladesh? You are. So we have to be thinking about someone in Bangladesh also. You know, who is thinking about someone in Azania? We have to be thinking about Azania. Because if we are not thinking about Azania, we know that that enables you to exploit Azania to the fullest and leave the people bereft of anything for their own advancement because you've taken everything.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, we are a part of the human family, and just because these people don't see the rest of us as humans, we have to always keep our keep in the forefront that these are people, not just resources. These are people being exploited.
Absolutely.
People that have families, people that have mothers, fathers, people that are husbands, wives, daughters, sons. And again, if we want to see the world that we envision, nobody is left out in our analysis when it comes to the treachery of the West.
Absolutely. And I think that leaves us in a great place for another Black Power Up. And after the break, we will continue this conversation about U.S. exploitation that often comes in the form of aid.
Cocoa brought money to Ghana or to the Gold Coast as it was then, at a time when the economy was becoming monetized and when commodity production was becoming generalized. Then it created an illusion that the future was with cocoa, that wealth lay if one could get hold of a farm which would produce cocoa. And long after the reality had changed, take today, long after cocoa means anything in terms of a money earner to the Ghanaian or to the Ivory Coast or to the Nigerian people, we find large masses of Africans who are still locked into the cycle of cocoa production. Of course, they're not simply following an illusion. They are locked in because structures have been created that maintain them that way. And they're locked in because classes arose historically within our own society. And segments of those classes, at any rate, still feel that their objective interest is bound up with the type of economy and the type of dependent relationship which might have been the case, or which was the case, when cocoa was the principal crop. And we could, by analogy, an independent investigation, make the same case for sugar. But then the time comes when one crop goes. And the capitalist system is capable of selectively substituting another product which will reintegrate different parts of the peripheral world into capitalism. But the choice is a metropolitan choice. And whatever they do at a particular point in time, they are free to undo at a later stage. We do not have the control over the process. This is a warning against the illusions that might be created by things like Nigerian oil and Trinidad and Tobago oil, because it is clearly a situation in which they're at the level of the subjective. It's the same phenomenon that, say, the people of Trinidad and Tobago imagine that oil means wealth, that the extraction of that product is in and of itself the basis of development. That is no different from the illusion that might have been created in the late 19th century when Jamaicans started to export bananas and thought that they were onto a good thing. No different from the illusions created by cocoa and coffee and cotton and sisal and every other product that was determined in its essence, as far as production in the world scale was concerned, determined by capitalism at the center, not chosen by our people as an integral part of an autonomous development, not chosen by our people as part of the development of all of our economic resources. So it is a shortcoming that we have to watch out for. Now, over and above this marginalization in the broad sense because of the changes in technology and the changes in the value of the products which we produce and which we sell to the capitalist world, we also find ourselves the victims of the international economic depression, the international economic crisis, I should say, because it exhibits features which are partially features of a depression and features of a recession. But again, this is something in which we live. And if we think about it enough and we look around ourselves, we need not feel that it is an abstraction. It is something which we are living. From 1974, the capitalist world has been in perhaps the most serious, the most pervasive, and the most peculiar of its economic crises. Even the bourgeois economists themselves are looking back and they're saying this thing is far more deep-seated, far more wide-ranging than the so-called Great Depression of the 1930s. And if we were to go even further, we would find that 100 years ago in the 1870s, the period 1878-1879, Europeans used to speak about a Great Depression. The term was used in the 1870s. It was reused in the 1930s to represent points at which the international economy was in severe crisis. And whenever that international economy was in severe crisis, as always, I imagine with any social system, the system had to take stock of itself, and the system had to take new initiatives in order to survive. Well, I'm going to suggest that right now, the international economic system, having been in crisis for these last few years, has been taking stock of itself. That the capitalists who man this system, whose consciousness of the process in which they live is now sharper than ever, are aware of the overall ramifications of the crisis, even where they don't have an immediate answer. And very often, we who live in the peripheral world, we amble along without recognizing what it is doing to us and what is its real significance. Above all, for us, the significance is that the burden of the depression will be passed over to us whenever and wherever possible. That is happening throughout the third world. If you were to make an examination of inflation and identify the specific products that now, with a certain proportion of inflation, and then trace the export of those products, you will see the export of that inflation to third world countries, including some of the vaunted oil-rich states of the Middle East. Those are also ones that import the inflated products and in that sense accept the inflation from the central capitalist countries, which of course is not new, because in previous depressions, central capitalism has also sought to export the depression, to export the penury, to export the pressure created by contradictions internal to the system.
Welcome back.
Woo, lot to unpack right there.
Absolutely.
Lot to unpack right there in that mention of internal contradictions.
Walter Rodney was a powerful, powerful, powerful brother, and the guerrilla intellectual, man. He's somebody who, who let us know that this information is to go directly to the people, not just to be set and debated about constantly among
That's right.
PhDs. This is for the brothers and sisters who need it the most. You know what I'm saying? So definitely salute to Walter Rodney and the legacy that he has. And my brother Dwayne Omawale actually has a book on the life of Walter Rodney that he wrote. So yeah, everybody check that out.
Definitely. And shout out to the family of Walter Rodney, because the family of Walter Rodney certainly walks in his legacy. There
Mm.
have been many a time when people have wanted to honor Walter Rodney, but those so-called community service organizations don't truly live up to the
Mhm.
legacy of Walter Rodney, and Walter Rodney's family has not accepted those so-called honors because they understood what their ancestor was truly about, and because they too shared his vision. And I appreciate the family of Walter Rodney for really standing firm on movement values.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shout out to the family.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about imperialism, colonialism, how Canada has wanted to make itself seem like the good slave master in the wake of the brutality and violence imposed by the United States. And when we left off, we talked about the fact that many times imperialism is masked as aid to other countries. Recently, here within the United States, we have had all of these news stories about the former and now current president defunding what we know as USAID, an organization that has historically provided what is supposedly aid to other countries. And I will just say that, if we didn't have any idea before, the earthquake that really devastated Haiti in 2010 showed us more than any other thing before what exactly it means to receive aid from the US, and how many times that so-called US aid is simply the extension of the arm of imperialism.
Absolutely.
So we are still in the month of February. Some call it Black History Month. We acknowledge the entire year being for the observance of Black history. We might drop some extra stuff during this so-called Black History Month. But earlier this month, what I think is important in Black history and history overall is that the US government froze its contributions to the Multinational Security Support Mission, MSS. And this is a Kenyan led, but mostly US financed military force that was concocted by the Biden administration to intervene in Haiti when it couldn't get the United Nations Security Council to deploy regular UN peacekeepers to Haiti. Now, one thing that we know is that so many times throughout history, we have seen that the official UN peacekeepers are sometimes the ones that are breaking the peace more than
Absolutely.
anything else.
And yeah, committing violence, sexual assaults, all type of like.
Absolutely. And so this MSS, the Multinational Security Support Mission, is another arm of, I will say, imperialism, because it is supposed to be a Kenyan operation, but it is heavily funded by the United States. So despite the 600 million annual budget, the MSS has been completely ineffective at improving the efforts of the Haitian National Police to fight against Port-au-Prince's armed neighborhood groups, and now united in a coalition which has become the V Ensemble Live Together political party. The MSS is seeking this control within Haiti. What we know is that the MSS, heavily supported financially by the US, is also heavily supported with weaponry and other things by the US, right? And we can say that the MSS might be the aid arm, but also the Kenyan military has been supplied by the United States and other Western forces to go into Haiti in lieu of official UN peacekeepers. What does that really mean, though, for the people of Haiti? Are the people of Haiti actually receiving aid? Where's this money going? Inquiring minds would like to know.
Right. It never gets to the people. It never gets to where it never gets to any type of infrastructure. It never gets to, what they say that it's for. One thing about U.S. aid, and I would just like to point out, is it's kind of like that discussion we had earlier about community organizations and 501c3s. U.S. aid often comes with stipulations. And a lot of these stipulations are conditions that you must abide by to get these quote unquote aid packages.
Absolutely.
And they want you to adopt, I guess, policies that are favorable to the West. Also, it comes with a form of cultural imperialism.
Absolutely.
Programs funded by U.S. aid sometimes promote this Western idea of, Western values and cultural norms and cultural development. As we can see, that's again neo-colonialism. I mean, in full,
Absolutely.
and so anytime especially, with our brothers and sisters in Haiti, the 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 a country, a nation that defeated France and freed themselves from chattel slavery. For the West, not like there's two different things that we must look at whenever we are looking at Haiti, in my opinion. At least two different things. One is the need for cheap labor and materials, and in these Western companies, and that allows them to exploit Haitian workers, and continue to destabilize their own economy. And two is Haiti can never be seen as prosperous because of what it represents historically as a free African nation that has uh, rid itself of its enslaver and colonial masters, right? And so just imagine if Haiti was, left up to its own, its own agency and own self determination, and seeing Haiti as a nation that wasn't dependent on Western powers, a nation that didn't have uh, uh, a nation that didn't have the economic warfare placed on it by the West, a nation that was prospering, of Black people, of African people,
Absolutely.
way too much for the powers to be to see. And so we have to keep that in mind. Like, they're always going to attempt to use Haiti for cheap labor, for its mineral resources. They also have to keep Haiti in a certain place because of what it represents for us. We can look at historically how Haiti inspired people years after its own revolution all around the world. The Haitian Revolution
Absolutely.
was a symbol of rebellion and revolution and what could be to so many different groups, but especially African people here in America, African people in the Caribbean, and even African people at home in Africa, right? And so that's one thing that we must always remember and keep to the forefront of what Haiti represents to us all, and why since the Haitian Revolution, the West has fought to destabilize it. I mean, we used to hear the stories about, the Clintons over there after the earthquake and how all of this money was raised. And then you would read articles that not a single house was built with that money.
Absolutely.
You
And
know,
look, I remember being at that time, I was still living in New Jersey, and the community that we were living in was raising a lot of money. And that was when we first found out that giving to the Red Cross doesn't get to people on the ground.
right, right.
So you have to consider, the things that are being uncovered in this particular article in Haiti Liberté. It states that after the 2010 earthquake, by far the largest recipient of USAID funding in Haiti was a Washington, D.C. based contractor, Chemonics International. This contractor received over $200 million
Wow.
to carry out a total of 141 projects. Now, do we know if these projects ever began? Do we know if they've been completed? I mean,
The people in Haiti say no.
Exactly. And the article goes on to explain that USAID awarded more money to Chemonics than to the entire Haitian government.
Wow.
After this earthquake. So a US corporation can get more money than the government of Haiti to rebuild. How does that really work?
Yeah, what's the saying? Never let a good crisis go to waste. That's what they do.
And there is a piece that is published on the Center for Economic and Policy Research's website that talks about this issue with the government of Haiti not receiving adequate funding, but Chemonics being the recipient of that funding. Of course, there is a lot of detriment in what Elon Musk and Trump want to cut, right? But some of these things, when we think about USAID, who has the aid really gone to?
Right.
Because I don't believe that there is one of our relatives in Libya who can say they've been a recipient. I don't believe there's one of our relatives in Azania who can say that they've been a recipient. I don't believe there's one of our relatives in Niger, in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Eritrea, in Ethiopia, who would say that they have been recipients of anything that has been prepared by USAID, especially when you have US corporations who are on the receiving end of this aid rather than the people who need it, and it's not going directly into their hands.
Yep.
And when we talk about direct grants or being a direct recipient of certain things that the government has set aside for the people, we know that we are in this constant state of whiplash as it relates to the president trying to freeze funding for government programs.
I wanted to kind of add on just really quick to what you were saying and this idea about Haiti, money, aid. I looked up the richest people in Haiti. And I just want to give you the top three. Dennis O'Brien. None of these are African people, by the way.
O'Brien? That sounds like
son
of Brian, perhaps from Ireland or Scotland.
Right. And says, though not a Haiti native, Dennis O'Brien is Haiti's richest man at $6.8 billion. Born in 1958 in Cork, Ireland, O'Brien learned from his dad how to make sales and do good business, how to colonize, I'm sure. Right. But it says he's made $1 billion through his investments with the largest telecom company in Haiti. All right, number two, Gilbert Biggio, $1.2 billion. Although Gilbert Biggio is a retired businessman, is one of the few Haitian billionaires. Biggio has a huge nest egg to live the rest of his life full of luxury. I don't care about that. It didn't really say. His main ventures were establishing a GB group which has prospered and grown to make him the second richest man in Haiti. And the last I'll go with is Gregory Mev's net worth $1 billion. Has interest in various industries throughout Haiti, which is one of the largest industrial parks in Haiti and a warehouse for over 90% of Haiti's imported food. So we can see that whether it's food, whether it's telecom industry, none of this is controlled by Haitian people. These are controlled by Europeans who are making billions of dollars. And so whenever we see these people coming in, acting as if they are coming in good faith, we know they are coming to continue to exploit and make money.
Exploitation is the name of the game.
Right.
And this was literally what Huey P. Newton was saying. Until we make a full-on assault of the establishment that continues to exploit the wretched of the earth. It is an entire establishment. And the nerve, the unmitigated gall of some of these suckers like Elon Musk to talk about so-called entitlement programs. The nerve.
Let's get to it, because that's yeah. For those that don't know, Elon Musk on Twitter probably a few days ago, he posted a meme and he captioned it, "Why 90% of America loves Doge." And he says, "Watching Trump/federal programs, knowing it doesn't affect you because you're not a member of the parasite class." They got some nerve for real. First off,
got a nerve, because when you talk about parasites, right? For those who follow me on social media, they would have seen that last week I posted a video and I titled it, "Look at the Welfare Queens."
Yeah. Right.
And all of those welfare queens were white men who frauded the system. First of all, can we call out that sucker Brett Favre?
Right. Who did he did?
When is Brett Favre's ass
right
going to pay back the millions that were stolen through welfare fraud?
Right.
Brett Favre ran an entire EBT scam and nothing has been done. They're talking about,
and he's still talking like
money back.
Right. He's still talking like he has a leg to stand on about these different social issues and programs being cut. And Brett Favre is a thief, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
In that particular video, I alluded to the nostalgia of Lakewood, New Jersey, somewhere around 2017, 2018, where an entire community of Hasidic Jews frauded the welfare system. And why was this particularly important to me? Because I happened to be a single mother of 3 children at the time. My first husband had made his transition. My first husband and I were divorced in 2015. And after that time, I remember applying for food stamps because I was working a job where I was making less than $30,000. And I had 2 children at first, 2 girls. And I remember being awarded $41 a month in food stamps. I applied for food stamps because literally this is all that I needed. Like, I need money to help with food because food was getting expensive. And I had these 2 girls, right? So about a year later, I have a son, and now I have 3 children. And it was actually when I had my son where I got awarded the $41 a month, because when I had only my 2 girls, I could not qualify for food stamps. Now, at the time, I'm only making about $28,000 a year. Not qualifying for food stamps with me and 2 children. So I have my 3rd child, and now I qualify for food stamps, and that's $41 a month, right? $41. So my ex-husband, God rest his soul, was a very good man. and I didn't have to fight about child support or anything like that. And we had agreed that he would pay what he could for child support, and that only came up to about $200 a month, but it sufficed because he always made the extra effort to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was not until he transitioned that the EBT department said, hey, we're going to just add that $200 to your food stamps now because you're not getting this child support anymore. So it's me and 3 children, and I'm getting $241 a month for EBT benefits. Well, about the time that I applied for Social Security for my children so that they would receive the death benefit from their father, I get this notice from the welfare division saying that I was overpaid and that I have to now pay back this money because I was receiving too much. And it was because of the Social Security benefit to my children. Mind you, I had only received Social Security for about 2 months.
Right.
And they were basically telling me, oh, now that you get Social Security, you can't get food stamps anymore. And I said, okay. But the big fight with me and the Union County Department of Social Services was that they were trying to charge me way back to when I first applied for Social Security for my children, saying, you frauded the government, you have to pay this money.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, I cut a straight fool
Of course.
in court because what I said was, the nerve of you to go after me, a working single mother who is a veteran, even though, it's nothing to me now, but at the time, a working single mother, veteran, has served this country. You're going after me for money that I don't really owe you, but you got a whole gang of Hasidic Jews who are just in the news for welfare fraud.
Right.
What are you talking about? Because I'm not the face. I'm not the welfare queen. Right. It looks like that person in a big fur hat in a long black coat with tendrils on the side. That's not me.
Right.
And when we think about the statistics, right, of who is really receiving these benefits, who's really receiving these benefits? Steve Bannon put out a video the same day that meme popped up on X. Steve Bannon put out a video and was saying, Steve Bannon said that they're shooting themselves in the foot because they have MAGA supporters who are the recipients of this, who are going to be affected.
Yeah, it's so funny. First off, you're absolutely right. This whole idea of welfare fraud, and Ronald Reagan in 76, this mythical welfare queen that he ran on was able to galvanize his white voter base, because again, we have to be seen as the ones who are in need of these social programs, and not only that we are more than likely defrauding these social welfare programs. But as you mentioned, like when you look at the numbers, like it's overwhelmingly white people and white women who are the beneficiaries of these programs. And it's so funny that they are so clouded and blinded by their hate, where they're like, strip the government down and get rid of all of these social programs. And a lot of them aren't even aware of the ones that they are probably benefiting from.
Exactly. And for me, what I have to remind people of is that I'm not taking anything that doesn't belong to me. I've been working since I was 16 years old. This is my money. I pay taxes consistently. It's my money. There is a special tax for these programs that you pay.
Right.
You ain't doing me no favors.
Right.
I've been paying these taxes for years. It's my money.
Right. And Elon Musk, the fact that he even feels, and obviously he does, have the power to even look into these things, to have access to
He's the
that data.
parasite.
He's the
He's
parasite.
the parasite because he is skating off of the money that we pay in taxes. He
Mm-hmm.
don't pay taxes, we do.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Like, make it make sense.
Yep.
But quintessential white man, you
Mm-hmm.
are impotent. You have literally nothing to offer, but all you can do is steal.
Right. Right.
So
Well,
that's
I mean,
what
he's
we
an
continue to
apartheid
do.
baby. It's in his blood. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's in his blood. But yeah, that was just a wild. You know, they're saying the quiet part out loud, but good for them.
Yep.
You know, stand on it. But the people that
Exactly.
I mean, and you know, in one of the rare cases with Steve Bannon being right, he is right. They're shooting themselves in the
He
foot
is.
because they are the recipients of a lot of these programs. And
Absolutely.
it will be interesting to see the mental gymnastics that they do whenever they're stuck out, whenever they're short, and are wondering, okay, I was told to put my faith in these two people, but now life is harder, right? What kind of mental gymnastics are they going to do to justify supporting the apartheid baby in Donald Trump? The people that they have looked at as heroes, the people that they have looked at as people that are leading them into a new world, right? When they just robbing them blind, right? You know, but you know, we'll see.
Absolutely. What I will say is that the mental gymnastics will not be so intricate because they're incapable of it, right? There is a certain level of intellectualism that has to justify these conjectures that they're incapable of.
Right.
And it'll be whittled down to the very asinine and sophomoric argument of the welfare queen. I promise you, it will be whittled down to the entitlement that the Democrats have built. The Democrats built this welfare system, and now all of these people feel entitled to what it is that the government has to offer, when in the reality that so many choose to conveniently ignore. Section 8 was not crafted or developed with Black people in mind.
Right.
Urban renewal projects that went forth, like
Urban
Pierce
renewal
Manor.
was Negro removal, is what
Exactly.
James
Look,
Baldwin said.
Pierce Manor in Elizabeth, New Jersey was never crafted for Black people. Seth Boyd and projects in Newark were never crafted for Black people. Perry Homes, Carver Homes, Techwood Homes, Capitol Homes, Bowen Homes in the city of Atlanta were never crafted for Black people.
Right.
They were literally for the white people who fell on hard times. But when those white people were able to move out into a suburb and they opened it up for Black people, those urban renewal projects became urban neglect projects.
Right.
Because now that Black people are here, we don't care anymore and we don't have to keep it up.
Yep.
So it trapped us on a paradigm. And it was hard for many people to get off of that paradigm or even change it, right? And the other government programs that were created that would give us a hand up, which was never a handout, were again not intended for us. They were intended for white people. Those of us who were able to take advantage of those programs and do better have been criticized to the point of being lazy and wanting the government to take care of us. But we don't see any Black people who are able to abuse the system in ways that white people have been able to. And that's
they've
what
been abusing. They created the system, and since they created it, they've been abusing it ever since.
Absolutely. That's what it's been. Literally, that's what it's been.
Kind of, I mean, what did Donald Trump just say? Like when it comes to getting things done, the law doesn't matter. I'm paraphrasing, but this is just a prime example of how things that apply to them don't necessarily apply to everyone else.
That's it. That is literally it. And that's what people need to understand. Yep.
This has been a dope morning show with you, comrade Kiana. I always appreciate these bills. I hope you guys out there, have a great morning and salute to y'all from the Rise Up International Morning Show.
Absolutely. From Natasha, Ikemba, Fernando, Isaac, Kalanji, from all of us to you, we appreciate you. And we want you to stay tuned this week because we do have a very special live show coming to you this week in celebration of this 4th anniversary of Black Power Media Reloaded. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned to us for the rest of the week. But until then, rise up.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one, or the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. What we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.